Hello, everybody. How you doing today? This is Sakoni Prince, and I am super excited to be able to come to you and share with you my podcast, Heal. And Heal is an acronym for Help, Elevate, and Learn, and it's a guide for healing your inner child. And it's also based on my best-selling book. And I say best-selling because I sell an average of 5 of these a week. And it's just been impressive to me how many people have resonated with the message about inner child trauma and inner child wounds, but even more so, inner child healing. I think before we can actually work on anything, we have to at least admit and address it and say that we have a problem if we do. And like I was sharing with a group of men a couple of weeks ago, all of us have had a childhood. The question is, what type of childhood have we had? And how can we address issues that happened then but are still showing up now? But listen, in fact, before I get any further into this podcast, I do want to share with you that it is sponsored by BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable. It is the easiest possible way to start talking. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable. It is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal or choose Sakoni Prince Heal during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. So I want to thank BetterHelp for coming along and actually helping us to be able to actually bring you these valuable podcasts. Unfortunately, our guest for today had to reschedule, but I did want to take this opportunity to share a little bit from my book and why I believe it's so important for us to take on this monumental challenge of looking at what happened to us when we were younger and how it may still be affecting us today. Like I tell people all the time, are you having current day behavior that is rooted in something that happened in your childhood? And like one of the therapists said, if it's hysterical, it's probably historical. If someone goes over the top or goes too hard or too heavy on a particular subject, it's probably not because of what currently happened, but it's based on something that happened in the past and it's just showing up again. And being honest enough to look at ourselves and to ask ourselves that question, is what I'm doing today, is it based on what's happening right now, or does it have its roots in our past? So when I sat down to write this book, I thought it was going to be a quick write, but in fact, the reality is it took me a while to put together my thoughts and to really make sure that I was focused in what it was I was trying to accomplish, which again is to start the conversation. I'm not here to end it. I want to start the conversation because I want to make sure that we are comfortable with talking about our past and the things that we've gone through. And I know sometimes it may be uncomfortable, which is why you need to get professional help. But if you never start the conversation, if you never take on that challenge, you'll just find yourself repeating the same cycle. And nobody wants to go through that over and over again. In order for us to heal, we have to take the time to focus on our healing and put in the work. The opening quote in this book It's by Frederick Douglass. And this quote comes from 1855. And the quote says, "It is easier to build strong children than repair broken men." I'm going to let that sink in for a second. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And that is, in a nutshell, is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help us to go back and to reparent ourselves. And I even talk about that in the book too. And I also know that it's never too late to have a happy childhood. Because a lot of us, we're stuck at what happened to us. We're stuck at that point. And I forgot who it was exactly, but they talked about how our in fact, maturity level gets stuck at the point of our trauma. And so in certain areas of our lives, we can't move past that because of what happened to us at that age. We are stuck there. And I don't want people to go through life stuck. Honestly, I want all of us to be free. Free to live, free to laugh, and free to fulfill the purpose which we were called to do. But it's hard for us to do that when we find ourselves dealing with those unresolved issues, those childhood wounds and childhood traumas, that sense of abandonment or betrayal, that sense of abuse, and all of those things that happen to us. When they continue to show up in our lives, it hinders us from being able to fulfill the purpose which I know God has called us to do. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to, to take on this task of bringing up this subject. But I didn't want to do it from a negative standpoint. I'm actually reading a book which is co-authored by Oprah Winfrey and Bruce Perry, and it's entitled "What Happened to You?" And it's kind of along the same lines. I wrote my book first, and then I found out about that, so I ordered it and I started reading that. And it's a similar concept. What happened to you? What hurt you? I remember hearing, in fact, Bishop Jake saying, "It's not that you drink, but what are you trying to drown?" And a lot of us, we have hurts that we're trying to soothe or self-medicate. And oftentimes it's not in a positive way. Our coping mechanisms can be destructive if we don't take the time to really understand what hurt us. So I want you to make sure that you get a copy of this book, not just because I wrote it, not just because I think it's great, but I want you to get a copy because I believe that it can help change your life. I believe that it can help in a non-threatening moment allow you to look at yourself and ask yourself pertinent questions and important questions that can help you to start the process of healing. A lot of us, we don't want to do that because we're scared, we're afraid, it's painful, it hurts. And like Kathy Barton Brown said last week, healing hurts. You have to hurt to heal. But if you don't go through that process, if you don't embrace that pain of healing, you'll have the pain of regret, the pain of reoccurrence. That'll be a pain that you find yourself not being able to get past. Because again, just like a merry-go-round, it's going to keep coming back. I want you to get off the merry-go-round of pain. I want you to be able to heal to the point to where not only that you can live a free life, that you can be, in fact, the person that you believe God called you to be, but that you can also help somebody else. I've had people tell me that reading this book has really changed their perspective on themselves. And that's really what I endeavor to do. You know, in fact, like I oftentimes say, my slogan is I'm Saccone Prince of SacconePrince.com, where we make motivation personal, introducing you to yourself. And I really want you to just not only embrace the adult version of who you are or who you believe yourself to be, but I want you to also embrace the inner child. Again, a child that may be crying, silenced, hurting. Chapter 1 in this book, it talks about introducing you to someone. And I actually start off talking about myself and that my childhood nickname, and I had several. I was I tell people all the time I've been called everything from Silicon to Cyclops. So I'm used to people butchering my name. But one of the names that really sticks with me as far as the childhood name is what my mother called me. That was Coney. When she didn't want to say my full name, when she didn't want to say Sakona, she would just say Coney. And that's the name that I gave to my inner child because Coney is the one that, if I'm not careful, he'll sometimes drive. But that only tends to happen, in fact, when he feels neglected, when he hadn't been heard, and when he hadn't been properly attended to. So my responsibility, Sakona's responsibility, is to make sure that Coney is okay, and make sure that Coney is well represented and taken care of, and make sure that Coney has a voice. But I'm not talking about a voice that is angry, a voice that is self centered and self serving, but one that's self aware. Because I believe that if we don't do that, if we suppress that part of ourselves, that fun loving, that innocent, that adventurous part of ourselves, it shows up. If we don't stand up for that person, if we don't represent them in the proper manner, they'll have a fit, a temper tantrum. And there's nothing worse than having a grown person throw a temper tantrum. Now, it may not be the same as children kicking and screaming and falling on the floor and throwing stuff, but it may be even more dangerous. So we have to make sure that we are seeing about ourselves, checking on ourselves, making sure that we are okay, because then we can better help other people. Have you ever tried to fix food for somebody and you were hungry? You start counting every bean. You start looking at every piece of corn. You start wondering, okay, do we have enough chicken left? Or is there enough fish? Or you start wondering, is there enough? Because you're so consumed with your own hunger, but yet you're feeding someone else. And Jesus talked about it like this. He said, don't muzzle the ox that treadeth out the corn. We have to be willing to take care of ourselves to a point to where we can better take care of someone else. So many of us, we sacrifice ourselves again to a point that we're not good for anybody else. I don't want us to do that. I don't want us to ignore ourselves, to leave ourselves starving and hungry, and we're trying to feed other people. That's what this book is about. It's about checking on you. And there is nothing wrong with checking on you. We've been taught and we've been in a culture where it's like everybody else before us. If we don't take care of ourselves, how can we take care of others? I remember hearing the story of this lady who had a bunch of kids. And there was no place she could go in the house to where she could have a moment of silence, a moment to herself. So what she would do is she would sit in the kitchen and she would take her apron and she would just put it over her head. And her children knew when she's sitting there with her apron over her head, don't bother her, leave mama alone. She's having her own time. And she would do that several times a day. But they came to understand allowing mama to have that time, have those moments, made her more peaceable towards us. She could actually help us. She was recharged and refreshed because she took time for herself. So what about you? What are some things that you can do to take time for you? Maybe it's a bike ride, or maybe it's a walk. Maybe it's a stop at a park on the way home. Maybe it's going to get yourself ice cream. Maybe it's sitting and reading a good book. Maybe it's watching a sunset or a sunrise. When was the last time you laid out in the grass and looked up at the stars? When was the last time you went to the beach or went outdoors, went to a river, sat by a stream or a lake? When was the last time you downshifted, or even better yet, just took the keys out and threw them away and just had a moment for you? And I know somebody's sitting there listening to me saying, Sakona, I can't do that. That sounds selfish. And I know how hard it is because I fight with that myself. But I'm telling you, doing things like that, it reinvigorates you, gives you a new perspective. It allows you to be alone with your thoughts and really can work things out. Doing things like that allows you to unplug from the hectic life that we find ourselves dealing with on a daily basis. It allows us an opportunity to really grow. I was sharing with this one time I was speaking, and I told them, I said, growth really occurs in winter. And I know people looked at me like, Sakona, what are you talking about? Well, in the summer and in the spring, we see the results of growth. Growth really occurs in winter when it's not as warm, there's not as much moisture. The plants, what they have to do, their roots go deeper because they're looking for more moisture. They're looking for more nutrients. Their roots grow in the winter. They grow down, but then in the spring and in the summer, we see the results of what happened in the winter. We grow in those quiet moments, in those times that we take for ourselves, those times that we spend investing in us, those times that we spend nurturing and pouring into ourselves. We grow. The fruit is seen back when we show up for the people we've been called to serve. But we have to pull back. We have to take a minute and look at who we are, look at what we do. And sometimes we have to question ourselves. Why do I do what I do? Why do I respond the way I respond? Why do I react the way I react? And oftentimes, if it's repetitive, it's based on something that happened when we were younger, in those formative years of our life, those years that set the precedence, set the groundwork for the rest of our lives. So many people want to forget, they want to put it behind. They want to say, I'm not a child anymore. No, you may not be a child, but are you acting like one? I remember several years ago in a Bible study and talking about forgiveness. And this one lady, she started to become very emotional. She started pounding on the table and beating on the table and said, I don't want to think about that. I just want to forget. I want to put it behind me. And she was screaming. She was pounding on the table. She was crying. And I allowed her that opportunity. But I also let her know that you haven't gotten rid of it. It has you. And like Tom Cruise said, you may be done with your past, but your past isn't done with you. We have to be willing to face the horrors of our past, the hurt of our past, the hangups of our past, so that we can make peace with it, so that we can make sure that our inner child is in a better place, in a better space, which truly allows us to live a more fulfilled life. So many people's insecurities find themselves showing up in so many different ways. I truly believe that the narcissist and the person that has low self esteem is coming from the same place. It's coming from the same place. That self worth. The narcissist says, well, in order for me to prove how much I mean to myself, I have to outdo everybody. I have to be the best. I gotta be the best dressed. I, I gotta have, in fact, the most money. I gotta drive the best car, live in the best neighborhood, know the right people. Insecurities. Then at the other extreme end of it, the same insecurity is like, I don't want to be seen. I don't want anybody to look at me. I don't want to draw an attention to myself. And that's not how God intended us to live. You know, for those of you who know me, know that I'm a Christian. And I truly believe that what I'm doing even now is what God has called and given me to do. And one of the tricks I believe the enemy plays on us is that he either have us thinking that we are God's gift to the world or we're not worth being worms food. So he'll either have us in the medium or in the ditch, not in the center of the road. He have us in the medium thinking that we are God's gift to the world and everybody should be singing our praises, or in the ditch thinking, why would a worm even eat my dead body? But God wants us in the middle of the road because that's where you can do the most work. You can be the most productive. And somebody once said that the bend in the road becomes the end of the road if we fail to make the turn. How many of us have run off the road in our own life because we haven't kept the proper perspective about who we are? That's one of the reasons why I say that we have to value our value and see what value our value brings. Because I don't care who you are, God has given you a gift and a talent and ability, something that the world needs. What Satan wants to do, he wants you to believe that it's not worth anything. No one wants that. No one needs that. There are millions of podcasts. There are millions of magazines. There are hundreds of speakers. Why would you make any difference? But when you realize what you have, when you've taken inventory of who God has made you and what He has given you, it doesn't stop you. Again, I keep telling people, until you know who you are, anything can stop you. But once you know who you are, nothing can. And so many of us, we have an inner child that is so wounded that we can't be the best version of ourselves. They are so wounded, they won't allow us to show up. They are so wounded, they won't allow us to love or to trust or to believe or to try. They won't allow us to. So before you start off on a new venture, before you pick up a new habit or start a new job or start a new company or a new diet or go after a new goal, my thing is, are you healed? Are you healed? Because if you aren't healed, you're going to take that same thinking, that same attitude, that same mindset from one relationship to the next, from one job to the next, from one project to the next. Don't do that to yourself. Because what happens is you start getting depressed. You start thinking that maybe I'm not worth anything. Maybe I can't make a difference because I keep going through this over and over again. And my thing has always been the fruit, like Dr. Miles Monroe said, the fruit isn't for the tree. So my question is, what what's your fruit? And who is it for? And if you're having a hard time producing it, it could be because you have yet to heal. I really want that for you so bad. So bad. I actually started to say, well, I wasn't going to do a podcast today. I wasn't going to go live. Why? Because I didn't have a guest. But you mean that much to me. And it may be just one person tuning in, one person listening that realizes I got some work to do on me. I'm not talking about everybody else. I got work to do on me. And that's what I want all of us to do because I know the life we can live is so amazing. It's so freeing. And like my good friend Judy Lang said, she said, Sakoni, you don't have a gospel of salvation. You have a gospel of self-worth. And when she said that, it hit me in my soul because that's it. That sums it up in a nutshell. When you don't have a sense of worth about who you are, somebody can label you, somebody can manipulate you, you will suffer at the hands of other people's opinions, you won't stand up for yourself, you will take whatever comes your way when you don't know who you are. And honestly, in order for us to know who we have to know who God says we are. That's how I am able to do what I'm doing right now, because I honestly believe that this is what God has called and given me to do. And He's going to have to tell me to stop. I was telling somebody the other day, I found out for myself that I have to be careful what I say yes to. Because when I'm in, I'm in. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing. And I tell people all the time, your strength and your weakness can be the same thing. It's a good thing that I have a hard time letting go, but it's only good when I actually attach myself to something good. When I'm doing something positive, like what I'm doing now. It's not serving me when I attach myself to those things that are not good for me. That strength then becomes a weakness. Somebody listening to me right now has a kind heart. That's a strength. But somebody that wants to manipulate and take advantage of you and knows that kind heart can become a liability. It can become a weakness. There's somebody watching right now, or even listening right now, that has a stern demeanor. And that's good in certain situations, certain circumstances. That's good. It's needed. But it also becomes a weakness when you can't forgive, or when you can't admit that you're wrong. So I want us to put in the work and do it for yourself. Like I shared I did a presentation a couple of years ago, and I talked about, if you're doing it for somebody else, what happens when they leave? What happens when they die? What happens when they move out of state? Do you stop? Do you quit? If you're doing it for them, you will. But if you're doing it for yourself, so that you can be better, that your life can be better, so you can experience the level of freedom that God intended for us to have. If you're doing it for that, oh, now you got it. Now you're cooking with gas. Now you're making a difference. When you're doing it for yourself so that you can serve people the right way. I gave this example and I thought it was so telling. Can you imagine a volleyball player with a broken arm? It's in a cast. Yeah, you still may be able to jump and spike the ball, but how is your balance with your arm in the cast? You're really not that effective on the team. What you need to do is you need to take the time to heal. And after you've healed, then you can come back and you can be a stronger and asset to the team instead of a liability. It's like a football player with a broken leg. You on the sideline. There's nothing you can do on the field, offensively or defensively. So if we're hurting, if we're broken, if we have wounds and traumas, why not pull back before you get into another relationship? Before you start another job, before you start another business, before you take on another project, another diet, before you set any other goal, heal. Just heal. Take the time to step back and just work on you. Because I know that in the end, your life is going to be better. I'm going to share this real quick and then we're going to wrap up.
In a world where adulting can often seem overwhelming, there's a secret key to unlocking true serenity: healing the inner child. Within the pages of the acclaimed book, Help Elevate and Learn, a guide to healing your inner child, discover a journey, a transformation, or rebirth. This isn't just about reading, it's about embarking on a path to self-discovery and inner peace. Simultaneously, tune into the soothing waves of the Help Elevate and Learn, a guide to healing your inner child podcast. A sanctuary where candid conversations blend with expert insights, creating a harmonious symphony of healing. Each episode is a step closer to unburdening that youthful spirit within. Remember, it's never too late to offer compassion to that child within you, to rewrite your story with a happier, healthier narrative. Healing the Inner Child, the book, the podcast, the journey. Step into the world of self-healing and witness the transformation unfold.
So I know this has been a different podcast, and I don't even want to say unusual, but I'll say it was needed. It was needed for me because do you oftentimes wonder, am I making a difference? Am I doing anything that is significant? Am I leaving a legacy? And the reality is, if we're doing what we believe and know that God is calling and giving us to do, we are. Don't despise small beginnings. So many people watching right now or listening have plans and passions and dreams and hopes and goals, and you're looking for the motivation to actually do them. Once you heal your inner child, you have your own internal motivation. That's one of the reasons why I keep saying that I'm Sakoni Prince of SakoniPrince.com, where we make motivation personal by introducing you to yourself. You have a phenomenal gift, a phenomenal ability to change the lives of the people you've been called to serve. And I don't know what that is, only you do. When you show up in a situation, show up in the room and people's face light up, when you show up to do what you've been called and given to do, people know it's going to get taken care of. And so you understanding and knowing that and walking in that is what gives you that sense of freedom, that sense of fulfillment, that sense of purpose. That's what I'm doing even now. This is mine. My job is to motivate you and to make sure that you understand who you are and what you have, and understand that you have something special that somebody is looking for. So let's not keep rambling. And I don't actually think I'm rambling. I think I'm helping. But I do want to get ready to close out, and I do have to again thank our sponsor, none other than BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable. It is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you, all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal or choose Sakoni Prince Heal during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. Well, again, this is Sakoni Prince, and I am super excited that you tuned into our podcast. And we're going to be rescheduling Miss Sheila King, and I am super excited because just the conversation that her and I had about her being on the podcast was phenomenal. But we are going to be rescheduling her soon. And I really want those that have actually purchased the book, if you would like to come on, if you would like to be a guest, if you would like to talk a little bit about how the book has helped you and your own journey of childhood trauma, childhood wounds, but more so importantly, childhood healing, I would love to have you as a guest on my podcast. I wanted to make sure that I had therapists on, so again, they could frame up what I put in the book, but I also want to hear from you. So if you are interested in being on our podcast, go to SakoniPrince.com/heal. It's so here. SakoniPrince.com/heal. Trying to get my finger right. And there is a be on the pod. There's a link that you can click on and actually fill out for you to be on our podcast. So once again, I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for your time and your attention. And I want to thank you for taking on this monumental task of healing your inner child wounds and inner child trauma so that you can show up as the best version of yourself. And listen, we'll talk to you next week. You have a great weekend. Bye.